What is the weirdest thing you've ever seen a stranger do? I saw a man stop in the middle of a crosswalk, examine 2 leaves he was holding, throw one away with disgust, and then eat the other leaf. Well, hey, if you enjoy eating leaves, there's a lot of variety. You can be picky if you want. Lady in the airport, nicely dressed. She vomited in the middle of the walkway and just kept right on walking, perfectly composed, hardly even broke her stride, as if throwing up on the floor of a crowded public space was just another task to tick off on her list. Well, I mean, sometimes you just really have to catch a flight. You don't have any time to waste. There's a coffee shop located in the building I work in. When it was time to close, at midnight, I was told that a guy was sleeping in the coffee shop. I woke him up and told him I was going to lock the doors and he had to leave. He stood up and opened a bottle of water and poured it on his jeans on his calf. I said, "What are you doing?" Meaning like, hey, you're getting water all over the floor. And he just politely said, "That's how they work, man," and then left. It still confused the heck out of me. Yeah, I suppose that is true. When you tip over a bottle of water, the water comes out. That is how that works. You know those sticks that dog walkers use to throw the tennis ball further? I saw a guy just throw the whole thing, with the ball attached. The dude did it twice. Maybe he should have read the instructions a little better. Just last week, I saw a man walking around my work with one shoe. I politely pointed out that he was missing a shoe, and he, also very politely, apologized and proceeded to pull out his wallet and attempt to wear it as his other shoe. This sounds like something a sleepwalker would do. Were his eyes open? A guy wearing boxers running behind a car, which he was chained to by the neck and the waist. He was being escorted by a couple of other cars while people cheered around him. I'm pretty sure there is no context to this, but I was just passing by the town, and no one from there could tell me what the heck it was all about. It just kinda sounds like your average pride parade. A guy on the subway once took a handful of loose nuts out of his pocket and offered me some. I declined. Yeah, well, anytime somebody wants to give you their nuts out of their pants, you should always just say no. An old bald man on the train in full lycra who ate a whole 1-kilogram bag of raw potatoes. Are raw potatoes even, like, edible? I mean, there's like a dozen different ways you can make potatoes, and they're all amazing, but raw is not one of them. On the bus once, there was this guy who was shouting at his hand for going numb. He then threatened his hand and told it that if it didn't wake back up, he would smash a bottle of alcohol and stab it with the broken end. I hope the hand filed a report against him. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty abusive relationship. Me and both of my hands are on pretty good terms, so we don't fight. I saw an old man in a casino eat 40 or so peppermint candies. He would put 5 in his mouth or so, then swallow, then do it again. These were the ones that you had to suck on for an hour to get anywhere. Oh man, that just sounds horrible. I couldn't even do that for one of those candies. At a concert, sitting behind an extremely sunburnt man, I watched him peel off a sheet of his burnt skin and then eat it, as if it was a perfectly normal thing to do. Well, I mean, we do technically eat our own dead skin all the time, but it's usually in just tiny little bits, like even if you just like bite off a piece of your lip. But yeah, I guess it is a bit more strange if you just take a big old flake and just chomp it down for fun. One time I was at Walmart, and this is by far the strangest thing I've seen at one. I'm behind a lady at the checkout. The last item was 1 zucchini, but with a big bite taken out of it. The cashier says, "Did you bite this zucchini?" She just says, "No." Says, "Well, do you still want it?" "Yes, just put it in the bag." From where I was, I could still see the glimmer of saliva from the bite. But even if she was telling the truth, why the heck would you buy a zucchini someone else bit into? I still think about it today. I know a lot of people are like really turned off by Walmart because they're like, oh, it's always full of like creepy weirdos and like you never know what's gonna happen. But like, I'm actually very entertained by Walmart for that exact reason. Like just the fact that there are no social standards whatsoever. Like you could show up in pajama pants and you would hardly even be out of place there. Just yesterday, I saw a guy walking down the street with a glass of beer. Consumption of alcohol in public spaces is illegal here, for the record. Another stranger walking the opposite direction approaches him and says, "Hey, give me your beer. Here's some cash. Go buy me a beer and buy one for yourself, too." The first stranger obliges, gives this man his beer, and goes off with the money to buy some beer. By the time he gets back, second guy has finished the beer. The first guy hands a glass to the second guy, and they both go their separate ways. It was pretty amusing. See, I wish people could always just hit it off this well. If everyone just had trust for each other and be like, "Hey, random stranger, I'll do you a favor if you do me one, just like right now." I saw a woman on the train file her nails. In between filing each nail, she would lick the file clean. You know, there seems to be a lot of weird people who just don't mind putting things in their mouth when they're not supposed to. I watched a guy on the sidewalk below the train platform bend down and casually put a pigeon in his pocket, then walk away. Dinner is served, I guess. Well, I mean, out of all of the birds he could have taken, a pigeon is probably the most acceptable. They're just trash birds. They'll grow back. In my university dorm, one girl ate the same thing every meal. She would eat sliced bread, start at the middle and eat until the crust but not eat it. So she'd have an empty frame of intact bread crust. Then she'd microwave lettuce and eat it. I'm not sure that crustless bread and microwave lettuce really makes up for a solid diet. I feel like you might need a little bit more nutrients than you're gonna get from that. I was on a first date with this guy, and we went for a walk in the park. The path could easily fit 3 people wide, probably 4. He's on the outside and I'm in the middle, and there's this lady further ahead jogging towards us. We start to move over to make sure there's plenty of room for her to jog by. We start moving over more because she seems to be heading straight for us. As she passes, she swings out her elbow and clocks me in the ribs. I turn to look at her and she's giving me the dirtiest look. I have no idea who she was, and my date had no clue either. I still wonder if he was telling the truth, but he seemed pretty genuinely concerned and bewildered. Just a very random hitman, I guess. I was hanging out in Washington Square Park by the fountain with my buddy. Hot summer day, people have their feet in the water and just relaxing. I kid you not, a guy comes up jogging, places his water bottle under the fountain and chugs it, fills it again and jogs away. Me and my buddy look at each other like, no way, dude. Yeah, I've heard of a lot of weird things that some fitness-obsessed people do that it's just like, oh, I have no time to worry about things like, germs. A woman got in her car, took a big sip of smoothie, then proceeded to open her mouth so a small dog could lap up the smoothie in her mouth. See, I've tried doing stuff like this with Faye, but she never seems to figure it out. Not my story, but one my dad told me. He goes to work very early in the morning, and one day he had stopped at a Wawa to get some coffee. While he was pouring his coffee, he noticed a guy who had already put coffee in the cup and was now standing in front of the cream dispenser, rotating his entire body like he was hula hooping to mix it together. Well, who knows, maybe that's a more effective way of mixing it. When I worked at PC World, I had a customer come in and start browsing landline phones. She then got a call on her mobile phone, so decided to take off her jacket and kick off her shoes, take off her socks and lay on the floor of the store, whilst talking on her phone. After a while, she put the phone down but continued to lay on the floor, looking at all types of landline phones. I asked if she needed a hand, and she said she needs help. So I sat down on the floor with her and kicked off my shoes as well, and had a good old chat about landline phones. She ended up buying one with an extended warranty, so management didn't care that I just sat on the floor with her. Well, sometimes even though you're just so tired, you just have errands you have to get done. I was walking through the town I live in a few years ago, and some guy was walking just ahead of me looking like Hagrid from Harry Potter, in a long brown wool coat and long hair and beard, and he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a plant, with roots and everything, dropping soil everywhere. He looks down, repots the plant in his pocket, and reaches into the other side pocket for his wallet. Since then I've been totally in awe of him, and I often wonder what he was growing in his coat. Maybe it really was Hagrid. I don't know why, but a lot of weird stuff happens around me, even though I try to stay away from trouble. Most recent thing was me going out to eat some pho, and the guy next to me casually eating noodles with his glasses instead of chopsticks or a fork. Part of me wanted to ask if he wanted me to get him a pair of chopsticks from the front, in case he had a bum knee or something, but like I've said, I've learned that when weird stuff happens, to keep quiet and mind my own business. Yeah, you never really know, sometimes you could encounter someone and it turns into way more than you asked for. I saw someone watering the tree in their front lawn with a watering can at midnight. There was a massive storm about 20 minutes later. You could see it coming while he was watering the tree. Man, he's just like all the sprinklers that are on a timer that will still spray even when it's pouring. I was once at a hotel in Greece. At the breakfast buffet one morning, I saw an incredibly overweight man enter, go to the continental section and take 12 bread rolls, 12 slices of ham, and 12 slices of cheese. He went and sat at a table, took a knife, and started cutting each roll open and buttering them. Then, one by one, he took a slice of ham and a slice of cheese, folded them up, and placed them inside the rolls. Each roll would then be wrapped up in a napkin and placed inside his bag. Once he finished, he went and got his breakfast. Hey, I mean, if you're sneaky enough, I guess you just plan for lunch. Had to stop the car because a man was crossing the road while walking on all fours and had his arm in a woman's boot that went up to his elbow. He stopped midway across the road, waved to me, and continued crossing the road. While on all fours, he was like he was walking the boot as if it was an action figure or something. You know, some of these, it almost seems like people are doing it to just try to get a reaction of people, because I've actually done something kind of similar before, but I'll save that for the end. One time I was on the way to a house inspection and witnessed a man laughing and talking to his chained-up bicycle, getting progressively angrier until he started screaming and fighting with said bicycle. It was my first introduction to weird city people. Hey, you gotta discipline your bikes or else they might get themselves into trouble and get stolen. I saw an older Asian lady vomit in a plastic shopping bag while on a New York City bus. She tied it up, and when we reached the next stop, she flung it out the window and it splattered all over the sidewalk. Okay, well, that's all the stories, so I guess the weirdest thing I ever did in public. So back when I was like 15 or so, I was working in my dad's office, and right out front they had this huge willow tree, and the branches that fell off it were like literally 10 to 15 feet long, and they weren't as flimsy as you would have thought. So they were super long, super lightweight, but they actually held their shape. So basically all I did is I just picked one up, just holding it in front of me. I mean, it's going like 12 feet up. It's like basically touching the power lines. And I'm like, I'm just gonna go for a walk, just down this busy street, just like down the sidewalk, and just carrying this super long stick. And then like halfway through my walk, some people rolled down the windows and just screamed at me like, yeah! So I feel like sometimes people just like to be weird just to get a reaction out of people. I mean, that's the whole premise for Impractical Jokers. Anyways, I hope you had a nice time watching this video. There will probably be another one tomorrow.